The Medical Research Council says that they are studying COVID-19 statistics from schools since the start of the third term. Schools closed early at the beginning of July as part of the country experienced a third wave of the pandemic with the spread of the Delta variant. We are now joined via Zoom by the South African Federation of Trade Unions spokesperson, Trevor Shaku. A very good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you so very much for joining us here on SABC News. We appreciate your time.
Good afternoon, Ms. Flo, and thanks for having us.
Let's get your reaction, please, Trevor. What, in terms of the increasing number of cases in schools of COVID-19, especially in KwaZulu-Natal and in the Eastern Cape?
The numbers do not surprise us at all because even from the onset, remember a few weeks ago when we spoke to you at the time when the department was readying students and teachers to go back to school, it based its argument on the basis that they were ready. But the point I made at the time was that they were not ready on various levels. Most importantly, on the question of achieving social distancing in schools. But most importantly, out of that, the reason why they would not even be able to achieve social distancing in schools relates to the question of overcrowding in classes because of lack of infrastructure development. And therefore, the current upsurge perhaps that is happening in the basic education, especially in the Eastern Cape and KZN, does not surprise us because most students in primary schools have gone to full capacity, and as a result, we know that they are not going to be able to achieve social distancing in classes because firstly, they share desks, but most importantly, there are more than 40 to 60 learners in classrooms, especially in the township and public schools in our public schooling system.
Yeah, I wonder if your union, as SAFTU, are you by any chance perhaps getting a different response to the response that's been given to Neptosa? When I was chatting to Mr. Basil Manuel, he said to me that even the answers that they get from government are really quite unsatisfactory in terms of the issue that we're talking about, which is overcrowding, which also incidentally was raised by Mr. Basil Manuel being the major issue when it comes to the spread of COVID-19 at schools. I mean, what answers are you then getting from government? And I mean, it's very important that we also hold to account you as the unions, as the people with the mandate, in fact, to speak to government about what's going on. Are you then saying that you're incapable of doing what you're supposed to do on your side, which is to push government to deliver on their promises when it comes to schools?
No, it's not on the basis that we are failing to push government to deliver as far as infrastructure is concerned within schools, but also in relation to this problem we are having of infections of COVID-19 in schools. The main issue here is unfortunately the question of government's orientation in its monetary policy, which as far as we see, it is committed to fiscal restraint, which would eventually affects government expenditure on public goods and services, and most importantly, curtail the delivery of services in education, including infrastructure. The other issue here is that we are dealing with a government that actually is looking to lump students and learners in classrooms at the expense of their health, because what they've proposed so far is that they want to reduce the social distancing meters. It was 1.2 meters last year. Now they want to reduce it to 0.5.
Yeah.
So they are people determined to actually lump and ensure that overcrowding sticks in those classrooms, because by merely reducing that particular social distancing measurement, you are saying to us that learners must return in numbers to classrooms, and therefore you are not really caring much about the possibilities of infections that may be highly prevalent in such a situation.
Yeah. And in the meantime, how are some of the schools sort of dealing with the issue of overcrowding? I mean, we obviously can't just sort of wait for government to deliver on mobile classes. Are they just carrying on, with having those classes overcrowded? I suppose there's not much that some of these schools can do in terms of addressing the issue. Is it just really carrying on and seeing what happens at this stage? I would assume that at some point, the heads of the different schools are trying to find different means or different ways to spread out the learners, whether it is to have some of the children in the school halls, or I don't know. Are there any other contingency measures that are possibly in place at some of these schools?
No, there aren't. And as we have said a while ago, that because they presented a readiness program before the reopening of schools, and they said and promised schools that they will be delivering mobile classes.
Yeah.
And the point we made then was that the very fact that they are trying to deliver mobile classes many months into COVID-19 shows that they had not delivered in their first promise to deliver mobile classes to schools. Because at the onset, they said they're delivering mobile classes, tanks, water tanks to school to assist them to be able to keep not only social distancing, but also ensure that learners and teachers do observe hygienic measures in that situation. So government, as far as it's concerned, because of the neoliberal route that it has taken, which mainly is to commit to a budget cut, a fiscal restraint, which eventually affects delivery of infrastructure and many other equipments to the schools. So as far as we are concerned, and as far as things are in the schools, we do not see any improvement being done as far as that is concerned. Schools are still without mobile classes, and as a result, overcrowding continues to be an issue. But remember, the issue of overcrowding cannot only be solved by you bringing mobile classes or building classrooms. It should also be also be met with an increase in teacher enrollment, or the number of teachers that are in the system. Because even if you may have enough infrastructure, for as long as you do not have enough teachers, you would be forced to lump the learners into fewer classes so that you do not stretch teachers and stick to their weight, which they must carry in as far as the Educators Act requires them to carry. So that is a serious problem, and government is not committed to alleviating that problem anytime soon. Because firstly, the attack on the public sector wage bill means that these departments are going to cut hiring employees. But most importantly, that will also mean that the schools are not able, they have taken about 2 billion from the school infrastructure grant. That is going to affect schools in ensuring that they procure equipment, but most importantly, facilities which are needed, like laboratories, libraries, but most importantly, in relation to a mere classroom, a basic classroom, because this is what the public schools are faced with in this country: lack of classrooms, let alone other facilities like laboratories and libraries.
All right, Trevor Shaku, thank you, sir, for giving us your time here on SABC News. Much appreciated.